Welcome into another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. We are back here another week, another fantastic interview. Took a little break from interviews last week. Did a little bit of a solo episode, but really excited to jump back in. I love sharing information from my perspective with you all, but you all know I love getting perspectives from other people and having some awesome conversations with even awesomer people. Awesomer is not a word, but you know what? I'm using it. I don't care. And this week is no different. So as we talked about just about a month ago, um, the awesome folks over at Iron Legion Strength Co. in Westbrook are going to be doing kind of a recurring spot here on the podcast. They have a really unique model over there. They're doing a lot of really cool things, and they have a lot of different people over there helping people in very unique ways. So this isn't a cookie cutter gym where you're going to go in and all the trainers are going to work with you exactly the same. They're going to kind of find someone that's going to really best fit you and what you're looking for your health and wellness goals. So I am super excited this week to be bringing on another member of that team. So I am joined here by Meg Seehagen, and Coach Meg has 7+ years of experience coaching the general population, sport-specific clients, pre and postnatal clients, and women of all ages. Personally, she pursues road races, skis in the winter, and lifts weights for general health and strength. Meg, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Of course, my pleasure, and I'm really excited to chat with you and learn a little bit more here because I love the really a lot of the niche work that you're doing and the people that you're really passionate about helping. But before we get into that, talk to me a little bit about what got you to this point. What was it that drew you to coaching people in sort of a health wellness capacity?
Yeah. So I go way back. I have always been pretty active, um, even in elementary, adolescence, high school, college. Um, and really, I think my interest for this field came from an injury that I got in high school.
Mm,
So I tore my meniscus and my MCL playing soccer. It was on the table to get surgery for it. I had just had a friend go through ACL surgery,
mm,
and I knew that I really didn't want to do that. So I started working with a really great PT,
mm,
and he got me up to speed, got me into strength training. And as I progressed and saw a lot of progression there, he invited me to come in and regularly strength train with this group of adults.
mm.
Um, and I had never really, outside of organized sports, I'd never really done anything like that. So I grew to really love it. And when I went off to college, I kind of dabbled in my own strength training, um, started bringing friends with me and that sort of stuff, and realized that it's something that I could make a career out of.
Mm.
And I changed majors in college to exercise physiology, um, and went through my bachelor's and went on to a chiropractic office as like a PT and chiropractic aide. So I did that for a few years.
Mm.
I worked a little bit in a cardiac rehab place.
Oh, cool.
And between those two, I kind of decided that I wanted to be more on the preventative side
Mm.
of health.
Yeah.
Um, I loved what I did, but there was a component missing for me that I wished I had seen these people at their best and not necessarily at their worst.
Awesome.
Uh, so I went on and got my personal training certification. I happened to move to Boston when my husband got a new job, and I started in a large corporate training facility there. I trained there for 5 years. We moved back in the pandemic,
Mm.
and I got connected to Iron Legion through some mutual friends. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
so it's been a long journey, but it's been great.
Awesome. How many times since your original injury in high school have you heard someone like me look you and go, "You are so lucky you didn't also tear your ACL"?
Yes, quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they weren't simultaneous. I actually tore my meniscus,
Okay.
on it with a lot of pain, and then went on to a partial tear of my MCL. It wasn't full. So
Gotcha.
thank
Okay. That makes so much more sense, because pretty much anytime someone in a single injury tears meniscus and MCL, it's because they also tore their ACL, which is why the
yeah,
other two followed. But anyways, I digress. I just wanted to throw that out there. But that makes so much more sense. No, that's fantastic. I love that you were lucky enough, and I do say lucky enough because when you go down the path, because I mean that's a very similar path. If you ask any PT, if you put 100 PTs in a room, and I'm sure this is true for people in your field too, maybe not to the same extent as PTs, but if you put 100 PTs in a room, 98 of them are going to say, well, I had PT once
yeah,
and I thought it was really cool. I wanted to learn more about it. Here I am. Yeah. But I think it's really cool that you recognize really early on that not only were you drawn to this because you love doing it yourself and you loved, like you said, bringing your friends along to the gym and all that, but you recognized early on that just through your training and your combined with your experience in the cardiac rehab, like all of this could have been avoided, or most of it, right? Some people have congenital stuff, some people have
yeah.
genetic issues stacked against them, but a high majority of that can be completely avoided. So I mean, good for you for recognizing that. I do you consider yourself kind of lucky that you recognize that so early on?
Yeah, yeah, definitely in a sense. And it's hard because you I would look at these patients coming in and being in a low spot, of course, and then you hear this backstory of their lifestyle and what they do for work and these sorts of things, and you just think to yourself, as somebody who is active, man, like you could have done so much to avoid this chronic back pain, or what have you. It could be any
Mm,
number of things, but yes, I do consider myself lucky in that sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, getting exposed to that early on in a career, but also coming from a place of where you already were passionate about the wellness side of things.
Right.
Yeah, that's yeah, not everyone gets that. And I say lucky because there are a lot of people that are like myself. It takes some time working in the sick care model
Yeah.
before you realize, like, hey, we really should be working in more of a healthcare model and using our skill set in a different way. So um
Yeah.
it's important, I think.
And honestly, when I was going to school for this, I didn't necessarily want to be a personal trainer. That was never my intention. It was never my direction. It just kind of fell into my lap as like a light bulb moment of,
Mm,
hey, I think I would like this other side, this other aspect of healthcare a lot more.
mm. Yeah. Well, good on you for recognizing that early on through all your experiences. Um, so talk to me a little bit as your career has gone on here. I'm really interested to learn about the prenatal and postpartum training that you do with women, and kind of where that passion came from for you. Because in my field, the women's health PT, pelvic floor PT is kind of going gangbusters a little bit. Because there's a huge need for it, and we are.
Totally.
But when you dig into that a little bit, we are very low on the list of developed countries in the world that offer that as a
Yeah.
standard part of our prenatal and postpartum care for moms.
Yeah.
And pretty much every other developed country in the world is just standard. Like, that's what you do. It's almost as routine as going and making sure the baby's healthy and mom's healthy during that 9 month, not 9 months of pregnancy. So talk to me a little bit about where that passion has come from for you.
Yeah. So the gym that I got my first job, my first full-time personal training job at, was a women's only gym, actually.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so upon hire, they request that you're pre-postnatal certified within a year.
Hmm,
So all of the coaches there are pre-postnatal certified, and this was in Boston, so maybe a few, years ahead of where we're at currently in Maine, but
sure.
just moving through the motions of, this is really important, and every coach here needs to be pre-postnatal certified because it's a very specific niche. Not to mention, all of the clients here are women, so 80 or so percent of women, I think, experience childbearing or childbirth, and that means that a majority of your clients are going to be affected by this.
Mm,
So at the time, again, I was new to the field. I was younger 20s. I didn't even have friends really that had kids. Um, and so, I cared about it, but I didn't necessarily understand it.
mm,
Um, and we had to be certified within a year of hire. So I start seeing all these women, and it's just this sort of resounding issue, whether
mm,
they had just had a baby or they had had a baby 10 years ago,
mm,
or, there was this underlying sort of symptoms, I guess, that most women still experienced later. And it just, you know, you didn't understand it. Like,
mm.
why?
Yeah.
Why is
Yeah.
this such an issue? You have a doctor, there's healthcare, you see an OBGYN, you have a
Mm,
PCP, there's these team essentially that's supposed to help you. Um, but it wasn't, nobody cared about the physical health of mom. They
yeah.
cared about the physical health of baby.
Mm,
Um, and so, it just, the lack of support was really loud, I guess, for lack of better words.
yeah.
And as I was there about 5 years. So over those 5 years, I just got a lot of experience, a lot of, I guess, practice with the critical thinking of what you would have to do for these women.
Mm,
And I enjoyed it. They were some of my favorite clients. They're
yeah.
some of the most motivated clients that you'll have.
Mm,
Uh, there's sort of this intrinsic motivation of, I want to be as healthy as possible. I want my baby to be as healthy as possible, and I
sure.
want to learn how to do that.
Mm,
So uh, they became some of my most enjoyable clients to coach in that aspect.
mm,
Um, and then you can fast forward when I moved to Maine. Um, you would still see them here and there at Iron Legion, and I always enjoyed working with them. And I would say really the spark kind of relit when I got pregnant and now have my son who's 14 months old.
mm,
Uh, and we did another pelvic floor seminar at Iron Legion, and hearing it was Allison Poole, hearing Allison Poole talk about everything again, and having experience, currently in that situation,
yeah.
really kind of lit the fire under me again to be like, I would love to bring this to Maine, to Westbrook, into this gym as, you know, not something that makes women shy away from strength training.
Mm,
And not only that, but then can enrich their life as well, and hopefully not deal with some of these things that happen postpartum.
yeah. No, it continues to blow my mind that, like you said, we have access to all of these people who
Yeah.
should at least know that there are options out there
Yeah.
and not just chalk it up to like, well, you had a baby.
Yeah.
You know, you had a baby, just, cross your legs when you laugh hard, right?
Right. Exactly.
Like things like
It's
that,
common, but
or
it's
right,
not normal.
right, common, but doesn't have to be your norm. And also just the, again, we talked a little bit about, I think this really fits what we talked about earlier, the sick care model versus the healthcare model.
Yeah.
And y- a lot of the providers, the OBs, the PCPs, I mean, heck, even the family medical doctors or the family physicians or pediatricians that see the kids afterwards, having certain conversations with the parents, aren't bringing up like what might be safe and healthier to do for mom as well, outside of the scope of what happened to that area of your body, right? So,
Right.
and that's where some of the strengthening comes in, because I know obviously you're not necessarily doing the same things that someone who does pelvic floor rehab or work would be. It's more around strength and wellness and exercise for those populations. But even counseling on that isn't really isn't really happening, right?
No, no. I mean, you get the generic, you go in 6 weeks postpartum and you get the generic, you're good to go. And, just return to what you did before,
Mm,
monitor how you feel. And it's these very generic statements that just kind of leave you with a ton of questions. And then on the other side of it, it feels a little downplayed, right? Because you might be experiencing things and they say return to normal, and you're like, but I'm not normal. These things don't feel
Yeah.
the same. It's
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix it, and I don't know what to do or what to pay attention to
Mm.
or what's unsafe. So um, yeah, I mean, it's just, I think, like you said, it's definitely becoming more of a booming sort of industry, which is really wonderful.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, it would be nice if, at those OBGYN appointments, it was something that they talked about or at least mentioned to you,
Mm.
had referrals to other pelvic floor PTs or, whatever it may be.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm curious when if you don't mind sharing, when you had that conversation after you had your child, did any of that come up, and did you what or did you just kind of be like, me being in healthcare, my wife's in healthcare, like when we're in appointments for ourselves or our kids, we kind of go yeah, like maybe it's not worth having the conversation right now. But is that a conversation you've had with providers before, or even with your own providers in those situations?
Um, are you asking if I mentioned to them that they should say, something to other women, or just if they said it to me?
Both.
Both. It was never anything I honestly mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, they knew what I did
Mhm.
for work, and I don't know if that acted. They didn't know specifically I was pre-postnatal, but I don't know if that acted as a crutch of she must know what she's doing,
Mm.
and so therefore they didn't mention anything, or if they just wouldn't mention anything to anybody.
Mm.
Um, but hearing from other friends and whatnot, and me saying to them, giving them referrals for pelvic floor PT, none of them had ever heard of any of this, or, the term diastasis. A lot of doctors don't talk to women about that at all.
Mhm.
Um, and even, I would see women 5 years after they had children and they had never heard the term,
Wow.
or realized that they had it, or, whatever. So
Mhm.
no, it was never a conversation that I broached from that aspect of it, and it was never really anything that got brought up outside of the traditional. Yep, you're good to go. You can return back to sport, and that's that. You're on your way.
Yeah. So everyone out there listening, if you have heard that before, or you are maybe in a position where you might hear it soon, and you go, well, what does that mean? Just return to activity and monitor my symptoms. Just go talk to Meg. Or go talk to Meg, because she can help you decipher what that means, and she's a great first resource for that. Well, along those lines, Meg, I know for all of you listening and watching out there right now, this Saturday, the Saturday after you're listening to this here right now, the 22nd of April, you are having a seminar on strengthening for prenatal and postpartum women. Tell us a little bit about what people can sort of expect from that seminar, and where they can find a little bit more information, and what time it's at, and all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah, so it's on April 22nd, which will be this coming Saturday once this comes out. It's at 9 in the morning at Iron Legion. Um, and it's going to be more like lecture style, and we may do a couple of breathing type exercises, but we're going to go over two major considerations, whether you're pregnant or postnatal. One of which being core engagement. So how do you properly engage your core and avoid coning, which then causes diastasis, um, or can be a precursor to diastasis. Um, and then the other consideration being pressure management. How do you brace your core for those large, complex movements that we specialize in at Iron Legion? Okay, so squat, bench, and deadlift. But outside of just that, even being major lifting, um, exercise, running, those types of things, all of this will benefit that. Learning how to breathe, how to engage your pelvic floor, how to not tense through your upper abdomen or your rib cage, and yeah, we'll dive right in. We'll go through each trimester too. So amongst those two considerations, we'll kind of break it down a little bit further on what you should be looking for, what questions you should be asking yourself while you're lifting while pregnant.
Yeah. Fantastic. And we'll make
Yeah,
sure we have a link for people to sign up right in the show notes here as well. So you can head over to that website and learn a little bit more. And because we've mentioned a couple times, just to give kind of a snippet of what you are going to talk about this coming weekend, can you let people listening know who might not know what diastasis is?
Yeah, so diastasis essentially, you have two layers of abdomen, right? You have your transverse, which kind of wraps around your body like a belt. And then you have your rectus, which I just describe as kind of your stereotypical washboard abs. As you get pregnant and your belly grows, that rectus, so the superficial ab, actually separates. And that midline is held together by connective tissue. Okay, it's a good thing. It's supposed to happen. It's natural. It's you know, how we carry our children. And essentially what happens with either postural, like positioning, or breathing, or exerting too much pressure in that midline, is you can put a lot of stress on that connective tissue.
Mm.
It's built to take stress, but when we abuse it, you can get a little bit too much there, and it can spread a little bit further than maybe it necessarily would have.
Mm.
So it can be exacerbated by exercise, but it doesn't mean that exercise isn't safe. It just
Mm.
means that you have to know what to do to take care of it, or how to change that, or how to modify. So we'll be going over what diastasis is, of course, but then also the modifications that you would need, and some kind of typical movements that cause it too. There are certain movement patterns, positions as you grow larger that you do need to avoid, just because it tends to cause that in everyone.
Mm. Yeah, great overview. So I encourage you all to check this seminar out if you are someone who has had a kiddo recently or not, or you're currently expecting, or you want kids in the future, because I know that a lot of these tips are going to help you get ready to
Yep.
deliver a child and recover after going through all of that. So I encourage you all to check that out. Well, Meg, fantastic. I just have two more questions here for you before we wrap up today. Okay. So questions that I ask all the guests on the podcast. There are no right or wrong answers. Don't worry. It's not, they aren't trick questions. There's no right or wrong answers. You can't answer these incorrectly. The first question is what is your definition of strength?
Ooh, definition of strength. That's a great question. I mean, I feel like there's so many answers that I could just funnel down into like this one perfect answer if I could just think what it is. But I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of components to it. And I think you could think of it in a physical sense. You could think of it in like a mental or an emotional sense. Um, However you want to think of it, though, I think at the root of it is growth, right?
Mm.
So whether you're physically strength training, or you have something that you're going through, some challenge that you're building mental fortitude, the more kind of life experiences and challenges you go through, the more sort of strength that you get.
Mm.
Yeah. Does that answer it?
Of course it does. Yeah, like I said, there are no right or wrong answers. That's fantastic. The reason I ask everybody this is the answers are always different, right? I don't. It's very rare, very rare that the answers have ever perfectly matched up, right? Like bits and pieces do, but everyone always brings kind of their own their own flavor and their own perspective to it, and I love it. And you nailed that. You're right. Growth is a huge part of that. That's fantastic. So the last question here is, this is going to be a lot easier, I think, for you. Um, um, what is your true purpose in life?
Oh, that's supposed to be an easier question.
Oh, easier is a relative term, right? Am I not?
My true purpose in life. I mean, I guess going back to your earlier statement, I feel very lucky in saying that
Mm.
I feel like I'm on a good path, at least to finding that. Healthcare and this side of it, this preventative side of it, is something that I've really been passionate around, the idea of making it accessible to everyone.
Mm.
So whether you're new to lifting, old to lifting, have previous injuries, are pre-postnatal, are elderly, younger,
Mm.
whatever it may be, whatever disparity you may face. I really would love this to be kind of spread throughout the community,
Mm.
and have it accessible for everyone. And it doesn't have to be any big crazy thing. It doesn't have to be, the big three powerlifting or anything like that, but just movement in general. And so I feel like my purpose is just sharing with people what I do and the types of clients that I see. Because there's a large, difference between all the clients that I see, whether young, old, women, men, previous athletes, never done anything athletic in their life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's awesome. Well, first, congratulations for working hard to discover your true purpose, and thank you for leaning into that and sharing that with others, because I think it's really important. And I think a lot of people benefit from what your true purpose in life is. So thank you for that, Meg.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course. Well, everybody go check out the info in the show notes on the seminar that's coming up this weekend, the 22nd, 9:00 at Iron Legion Strength Co. in Westbrook. Like I said, that information will be in the show notes. You can learn a little bit more about Meg there as well. And there's great resources over at their website and everything. So everything will be right in the show notes for you to learn more about that. And Meg, can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing all this great information with us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Anytime. Thank you all out there for listening. If you got value out of this, please be a friend and tell a friend. And until next time, go make it a great week. And we'll see you back here next week on the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. Bye-bye.